Billy, come here. You gotta say hi. Say hello. Good morning, everybody. Hello. Oh, now you're really saying hello. Hello. It's Billy and Toby and Bennett. Welcome to Take Your Medicine. We are here on what's today? Thursday, June 6th. And Billy was just playing a very exciting game of fetch. So she's breathing super heavy. She loves to play fetch, and her and Anthony, especially when it's hot outside all summer, they play fetch together all summer long inside the house, running back and forth, huh? And she, since she was born, has had a really pretty severe heart arrhythmia. But when we changed her diet and I started homemaking her food, got stuff in your nose, um, it's improved a lot, but she does seem to get pretty winded after a good game of fetch, huh, Billy? How are you, Benny? Well, today I first wanted to cross off our date because yesterday I forgot. So yesterday was episode 27. We get to cross off two today, Billy. Yay! And today is episode 28. So super grateful to be getting into a bit more of a rhythm with recording. I have a lot I want to share, and sometimes I wake up and feel like none of it is actually worth sharing, but I am trying really hard to just trust the process and know that if there's something that can help someone, I'm going to just try and share my heart, and hopefully it's helpful to somebody. Um, I wanted to talk about an experience I had. I was just looking through my journal entries of this entire 4 years because tomorrow is the anniversary of the ceremony of the trees. June 7th of 2020 is the day that AJ and I were sitting under some trees and just having a picnic. It was COVID times, and so all of the restaurants were closed, so we went and got some burgers, some Impossible burgers from True Burger, and we were just sitting there having a little picnic date, and all of a sudden everything went still and quiet, and AJ actually noticed it first. He's like, did you notice that everything just went super still? And then I proceeded to have a series of visions for like an hour and a half or something. Um, I wept. I was sweating. I was a total mess as I narrated to AJ what was happening and what I was seeing. And those visions completely changed our life and set me on a path toward healing. I thought that after years of therapy that I was healed of the trauma that I experienced in my life, but I've come to realize that we all just have a story and we all have residual stuff in us, and healing cannot take place of a wound if that wound is just closed up and there's still infection or something in there. It has to be opened. Those wounds have to be opened so they can breathe and truly heal. And so that was the beginning of me starting to open my wounds and allow them to breathe and to be, and allow the feelings to come up, and my body, in response to the spiritual and emotional healing I was doing, my body began to heal too. And as I was reading my journal entries of some of the experiences I've had, I was reminded of what I consider a miraculous healing. And it was one of my first experiences with a being that I did not recognize that came into the room and simply performed healing on me. And so I wanted to share that experience. When I was 21, I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. And over the next, I don't know, 10 years or 8 years or something, my health pretty much steadily declined to the point where there were a lot of times where I could not walk without holding on to somebody or something. And I fell down the stairs many, many times, dizziness, fatigue. extreme pain were a really big part of my life, and it was getting really, really difficult. And I truly just had the desire to live to the point where my youngest child was 18. I cried so many nights feeling like I wasn't going to make it that far. They told me when I was diagnosed that I would be in a wheelchair before 10 years from that diagnosis date, that I had lesions on my spine that were blocking all of the nerve, what's the word, signals, and that those lesions were going to continue to get bigger. And the spine is not that big, so once a lesion, or what a lesion is scar tissue, forms big enough, it just literally blocks the signals from that point on your spine down. And I had several lesions on my spine, so I was terrified, and the terror, I didn't even understand how much that terror was making the disease worse and worse, and there was no cure. I was the number one top earner for the National MS Society's MS Walk in Utah. I think at least 1 year. I know for sure 1 year, but maybe 2 years. We got a huge group together. We gathered tons of donations. I was just trying to be as proactive as I could about finding a cure and getting this under control. And I had a wonderful neurologist named Pamela Vincent, who was both a neurologist and a homeopathic kind of person. She did acupuncture and all kinds of cool stuff. And she told me about a special diet, and that kind of began me on a path of realizing what a difference in our life's nutrition makes. And that path eventually led me to veganism. But as a result of all of the multiple sclerosis and also just bearing 5 children, when I was beginning this healing journey, my back and my neck were in terrible shape. I had so much pain, and it was very, very difficult, not just in my back and neck, but also in my joints. If it was raining out, my joints would seize up, and it was so painful and difficult. But my lower back and the top of my neck, there were so many days and even months where I could not turn my head one way or the other, and it was just a really difficult way to live. Well, fast forward to having the ceremony of the trees, opening up all these old wounds, realizing that my physical body was very much affected by the emotional suffering and trauma I had experienced as in my entire life. And so in October of 2021, I found myself again in a position where I just could not move my back. It was so painful. It was my lower back. And I had actually just visited my grandmother, who was one of my very best friends. She passed away a few years ago. And she had fallen and hurt her hip. And so when I was there and I was picking her up and helping her use the restroom and just lifting her in and out of the wheelchair, in and out of bed, on and off the toilet, my lower back really seized up, and it was really bad. And by the time I got home from that trip, I could not stand upright. I was bent almost all the way halfway forward, and I could not get my back to be upright. It was so painful. And so I decided to journey with medicine with the intention of healing my lower back. And I was reading in my journal about that experience this morning. So AJ and I went to a hotel it was actually at the Mayo Clinic, because it was the hotel by the Mayo Clinic Hospital, because they had all of the handicap accessible things. So there was a seat in the shower, and there was a bar by the toilet, and it was just the most comfortable place for me to go that wasn't at home, because I was in so much excruciating pain. And we spent the entire day just relaxing in bed. And then that night we journeyed with medicine. And I remember AJ getting really emotional right before we took the medicine, because every time we take the medicine, we pray and we give gratitude and we speak out loud our intention with the medicine. And he was basically just pouring out his heart, asking the medicine to help me heal and to help me be whole again. And then we took the medicine and we had our music playlist and we were in the pitch black dark. And eventually I started noticing a presence in the room. And oftentimes when these beings show up, it's very kind of gradual that I start to notice their presence until eventually they fill the entire room and their energy is so overwhelming that you literally cannot deny it. And this being was unlike anything I had ever seen, ever. And she was the most beautiful being. And it is absolutely impossible to completely describe her, but she had millions or thousands or something of eyes. She had tentacles, and she was like an octopus that had 3 separate midsections to her. And then from those 3 separate midsections, she had tentacles, like literally thousands of tentacles. And on all of those tentacles and on every part of her body, she had the most gorgeous eyes that were green, like emerald green. But the colors of these beings are not even colors that we can define here in the 3rd dimension. They're like, on a peacock feather. I have one right here. How the light catches them and they are like multi-dimensional colors. I'm not sure if the camera picks that up, but her eyes, every single one of her eyes reminded me of the center of a peacock feather like this. It was this beautiful green, emerald green, shimmering, and they had big eyelashes and they were all staring at me. And she actually started to put her energy into my body, and it was making me laugh uncontrollably. I had no idea what I was laughing about, but the energy she was putting into my body was like laughter energy, and it was healing energy, and I could feel her literally just lasering her energy into my lower back. And at a certain point, she had me bent completely over, and I was bent over and she was pouring her energy into my lower back as I was just laughing hysterically, which was unbelievable because of the amount of pain I had been in just before she arrived. But she continued to just put her energy into me. And then there were times where she would like tickle me, she would like zap me with her tentacles, and it was like the most glorious, loving electricity that you could ever imagine. It literally feels like electricity moving through your body when these beings put their energy into you, but it's all very unique. Each being's energy is very unique, but it's like love mixed with electricity is the only way I know how to describe it. Anyway, this being, I named her Augusta. I don't know why. I feel like that's what she imparted her name to me as, but I don't know if that it might have been Jesus Kate. I do not know for sure because Jesus Kate can shapeshift in all different kinds of ways, and she has disguised herself as other beings. And at this point, I was not familiar with Jesus Kate's name. And when, I am not on a relationship with Jesus Kate where I can just simply have a conversation and ask direct questions. When I am in the presence of her, she is a great God being, and I am basically submissive to her. And she comes in with an agenda of what we are going to work on. She does procedures on my body. She puts her energies very similar to this being. So I don't know if this being was Jesus Kate or was another being that I call Augusta, but she completely healed me. By the time I was done with Augusta, is what I call her, I could stand upright again. It was absolutely miraculous and amazing. And I was so grateful and I was overjoyed. And so the next day was Halloween. And we went home to our children and we had our lesson. I'm pretty sure it was a Sunday because we were having a Sunday lesson. And we made those ghost pops, where you take a Tootsie Pop and you put the tissues and you tie a ribbon around it. And I had googly eyes. And I remember that AJ made me a ghost sucker that had tons and tons of eyes. It was covered in eyes. And he said, "This is Augusta." And I still have that sucker pop ghost thing in my china cabinet downstairs because I love it so much. And it reminds me of a truly miraculous healing that I was able to experience with these beings. They gave me mobility back. And since that time, my back has just healed more and more and more and more. And I barely have any pain whatsoever in my lower back now, which is truly miraculous. There were many, many times where I was stuck in bed. I've had to have chiropractors come to my house because my back had seized up so bad, my neck had seized up, that breathing hurt, moving my toes hurt, everything hurt. I couldn't eat, I couldn't drink without excruciating pain. There were days where AJ literally had to carry me to the toilet while I screamed and moaned in pain, showered me, and then carried me back to bed. I am so grateful for the healing that can take place when we open ourselves to these higher dimensional beings and to this medicine work. So I just wanted to share that with you because I hope that it maybe opens up your mind and heart to the possibilities that can take place with these beautiful earth medicines that are here to help us heal and help us to be our highest vibration self, help us to be our happiest self, help us to find our purpose and to truly live in it. What else? I wanted to talk about something that has been on my heart since last night. We watched a show with my oldest son last night, and we've been watching it, and it's a great show. I'm not going to name it by name, but there was a scene or two in it that really triggered me to start thinking and having a lot of emotions about a lot of the past mistakes that I've made in my life and all of the things that I've had to heal from and apologize for and forgive myself for. And it really made me start to think about how hardened I have been and literally how masculine and toxically masculine I have been. And as AJ and I have worked together to find our own healing and our healing as a partnership, I have had to really open to him. And I've talked in previous episodes how Jesus, Kate, and Ebert have shown me that AJ is safe to open to and have encouraged me to open myself to him and to soften and to be gentle with him. Because, men are taught to be strong and masculine and to not show emotions. And I have always struggled to be gentle with AJ and to understand that he is a sensitive creature, just like I am a sensitive creature. And it helps me to think about AJ as the little boy version of himself, because little children are all sensitive. They are all so sweet and gentle. There's not toxic masculinity until the world places that in them and teaches them to harden themselves. And so as I have healed myself, I have realized that I have not been as patient and loving and gentle with my partner as I need to be. And to be triggered by something that kind of opened that all up for me last night. And as I was crying to AJ last night and just saying, I'm so sorry for all of the ways that I have hurt you and all of the things that I had, all of the times that I was not sensitive to your needs, I decided to add a little part in this affirmation that I have in my phone for AJ and about AJ. And I wanted to just share that part of my life with you because it's something that has really helped me. And I feel like it's really helped our partnership. So what it is I have an affirmation I wrote quite a while ago in my phone. And when I start to feel triggered by AJ or start to feel upset with him, I have trained myself, and it's not always perfect, but to open that affirmation and to read that affirmation, which reminds me of the beautiful being that AJ is, that he is a sensitive being, that he deserves the benefit of the doubt from me, that he deserves my love and my trust. And so I have a reminder in my phone for every single morning, and it just says read affirmation. And I don't do it every morning, but I did this morning, and I do a lot of mornings. And so every single morning is the goal to read this affirmation that basically says, AJ is worthy of my love. He deserves my gentleness. He deserves to have the benefit of the doubt. When I get frustrated, I will remember this, this, and this. And it helps me to, when I do find myself triggered or enraged or mad or not trusting AJ, to remember, because I've been doing it, during the day when I'm not triggered, to open up that affirmation and to remind myself and to de-escalate those feelings and to pull back and create that stillness and that pause that gives me a little bit more freedom to handle the situation in a healthier way than I have in the past. So I wanted to share that idea with you because I thought maybe it could help your partnership too. One of the best times to write it, the time that I wrote it, was after an argument where we had a disagreement and I realized my wrongs and I realized that AJ did deserve better from me. And so when I was in those feelings, I wrote all of that out as a way of reminding myself for the next time that I feel hardened and upset, to remember that he's just a human doing his best too, and that we do think differently and that we come from different backgrounds and that we need to give each other some grace and some space. So I wanted to share that with you and hope that's helpful to somebody. And the last thing I really wanted to share are more quotes from Young Pueblo. I shared yesterday a couple of quotes from him, and he is on Instagram, YUNGPUEBLO, Young Pueblo. And he also has some excellent books that I have only read one of them and I want to read more. They're fantastic. So I highly recommend them. And he says, deep inner struggle comes from having a bad relationship with change. If you hate change, your mind will be full of tension. The entirety of reality is just one enormous river of change. Fighting against that is a battle that is bound to be lost. I think of tension as resistance. If we are strong and blocked and rigid and not willing to flow and bend, we are going to have so much more tension and struggle in our lives. The trees show me this best because they show me that when the wind blows and the storm comes, if they remain rigid and they fight against the storm with rigidity, they will literally snap. But the trees have taught me that you have to bend and flow with change and with the winds and the storms that come. Life is not meant to be easy. I believe that life is meant to be a learning process, but it is meant to be beautiful and to be appreciated. That struggle is literally the mechanism for our growth. So if we can learn to appreciate all of the change and all of the struggle and all of the difficulty, and realize that it is not meant to be a roadblock in our life. It is actually meant to guide us toward more healing, guide us toward more expansion and more learning and growth, that we will be so much happier in our lives. But when we resist change, we keep ourselves from growing, we keep ourselves from evolving, we keep ourselves from connecting with others. And so I hope that you can think about that in your life and maybe that can be helpful to you. Also, he says, the way your mind currently reacts is not a destiny, it is an option. Remove the inner weeds so that the greatest you can breathe deeply, so that the greatest you can breathe deeply and see clearly. The way your mind reacts is not a destiny, it is an option. And so yesterday we talked about being able to pull back, what Ebert taught me about the power of the pause, that changed my life. Or what I taught myself back when my children were very little, counting to 10 when I start to feel tensions rise in me, or the heat my blood start to boil or whatever, counting to 10, giving some space, because in that space we find the freedom to choose a higher way, a better way to handle the situation. It is not our destiny to react the exact same way every single time. Those reactions, noticing those reactions, gives us an opportunity to pull back, take a breath, and handle it in a more healthy way. So I hope that is helpful to you. I love you all so much. Thank you for being here. Hope you have a wonderful day, evening, whatever. Namaste.